going to get tea. It's Stephanie White. She has had enough of what she has seen from the officials here today. Understandable frustration from Stephanie White.
Couple of possessions in a row where Leah Boston got the fouls. I thought the first one should have been on Howard. And then here, as Petty's in there, Tillman kind of tosses her to the side a little bit, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back there.
What is truly worse, walking into Game 1 of the playoffs missing 6 key players, or witnessing the referees actively tilt the entire floor against you in the single biggest moment of your season? That is the impossible reality the Indiana Fever were just forced to endure against the Atlanta Dream, and the palpable frustration didn't just boil over, it erupted. Head coach Stephanie White absolutely went off, earning a technical foul for furiously articulating the one thought screaming inside every fan's head. So how is a team, literally held together by medical tape and sheer grit, supposed to keep fighting through this onslaught of injuries and officiating chaos? Was this truly just a case of bad luck, or was it something that felt far more sinister, a whole lot more like deliberate sabotage? Stay with me, because what transpired in Game 1 has left fans absolutely furious, players utterly livid, and the entire league buzzing with the explosive question of whether the Fever were just blatantly robbed. Do you think the Fever were robbed by the refs? Let us know down in the comments below. Just try to imagine walking into a do-or-die playoff game missing what amounts to half of your entire rotation before the ball is even tipped. How do you even begin to compete under those circumstances? That is the precise waking nightmare the Indiana Fever were forced to confront, and this wasn't a case of just 1 or 2 players being out. You want to talk about a tidal wave of bad luck? The devastating season-ending groin injury to Caitlin Clark was already a catastrophic blow. Then Chloe Bibby's knee took her out. Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Coulson were also gone with their own debilitating knee problems. Ari McDonald was sidelined with a nagging foot injury, and then just to twist the knife even deeper, less than 24 hours before Game 1, Damaris Dantas was abruptly sidelined by concussion protocol. That is 6 players who absolutely should have been suiting up, 6 critical rotation pieces, completely stripped away from the team, and yet this depleted, battered squad still had to step onto the floor and face an Atlanta Dream roster that was fully loaded, completely healthy, and patiently waiting for them.
Players they have. So Caitlin Clark, Chloe Bibby right there on the bench. But then you have Sophie Cunningham, Sid Coulson, Ari McDonald, all actually having to sit separate from the bench. You also have Damaris Dantas.
How is that even remotely fair to the players who bled for this, or to the fans who supported them? Indiana survived this exact war of attrition all season long, just for the right to secure the 6th seed. They scratched and clawed their way through months of games with lineups that were shuffled together like a puzzle with entire sections missing, and instead of being rewarded with the clean slate they so clearly earned for the playoffs, they were forced to show up in Atlanta with an inactive list that was legitimately longer than the benches of some other teams in the league.
Caitlin Clark's groin injury was already a season ender. Chloe Bibby's knee took her out. Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Coulson were gone with their own knee problems. Ari McDonald was sidelined with her foot. And just to make the cut even deeper, less than 24 hours before Game 1, Damaris Dantas was slapped by concussion protocol.
And speaking of the bench, the scene itself was a spectacle. In a powerful gesture, the Fever decided that everyone was traveling. All 16 players, healthy or not, were there in solidarity. It was a move that absolutely screamed of unity, but it also served as a stark visual testament to the sheer absurdity of their situation. There were not even enough seats for everyone. The main row filled up so fast that a second row of players, all dressed in street clothes, had to sit directly behind the actual bench, making the sideline look less like a professional playoff team and more like the chaotic boarding area for an overbooked flight. You know you have truly hit the injury jackpot when you can't even fit your entire group of casualties along the sideline.
We got the injured reserves here with you guys, which last month, they just weren't able to travel. What does that mean to you specifically, just having them there?
Yeah, I was super excited. I think just looking at the injured squad in itself, they just have a lot of knowledge. And so for us, just being able to listen to them, taking what they see, because obviously just them watching is going to be a different view than us on that court. And so super, super happy to have them with us.
And this is precisely where context becomes absolutely critical. Think about the other teams competing in these playoffs. They are all bringing solid, reliable second options off their benches, proven players they can seamlessly rotate into the game when their stars pick up fouls or just need a critical breather. Indiana simply did not have that luxury. They were forced to lean on whoever was left standing, desperately patching gaping holes in their lineup with a combination of medical tape, raw grit, and fervent prayer. And yet, despite all of this adversity, they still managed to make the postseason for 2 consecutive years. That single fact alone is a profound testament to their sheer resilience.
Obviously, the injured players, they haven't been able to travel, some of them, but most of them are here now. Just how do they help kind of from a culture-wise and with just bringing some perspective to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we miss them every day on the court. So to be able to have them we had our plane, front of our plane, normally we have empty seats. It was filled on the way here. So, I mean, they bring energy, they bring light, they bring their vocal leaders, all of them. So to have them on this trip is huge. And I don't know how we're going to fit everyone on the bench. It's not that long. It's been packed recently. So I'm excited to see how we figure that out, but it'll be great to have them back with us.
Sophie Cunningham, sidelined and stuck in the grueling process of rehabbing her knee, might have summed up their entire season best without even trying. She joked that at this point, she's basically an unofficial member of the team's medical staff. While it may have been a lighthearted throwaway line, it perfectly encapsulated the sheer ridiculousness of their whole season. Here was a legitimate starter, now relegated to the role of a cheerleader, cracking jokes to keep spirits up while internally knowing she should be out on the floor, making clutch shots. That is the Indiana Fever in a nutshell, finding desperate ways to smile through the excruciating pain. And the wildest part of it all, those devastating injuries didn't stop this team from coming out of the gate absolutely swinging in Game 1. They completely caught Atlanta off guard early on, building a surprising lead as if they were just too stubborn to even notice their crippling disadvantages. But of course it could never stay that simple, because right at the moment when the Fever proved they could hang, despite absolutely everything, the referees decided it was time to forcefully insert themselves into the narrative and completely change the direction of the entire game.
They're finally able to travel from a medical standpoint as well. So, I think having the whole group here, having those guys here gives us a little bit of a boost emotionally. And then having their perspective. I mean, you're talking about 3 point guards that are sitting on the sideline that can talk to our team in huddles, that can talk to our team, throughout the course of dead balls or when they come on and off the floor.
Every single playoff game has its natural, dramatic swings, but absolutely nothing flips momentum with more gut-wrenching force than a referee's whistle. That makes absolutely no sense. The Indiana Fever walked into Atlanta already carrying the immense weight of 6 injured players, and yet they still managed to punch first. They stormed out to an electrifying 15-6 start, with Kelsey Mitchell drilling shots early and Aaliyah Boston doing what she does best, completely dominating the glass and clogging the lane on defense. The Fever were locked in, playing with the ferocity of a team that had absolutely no intention of letting their shorthanded roster define their night. For one brief, shining moment, it truly felt like the impossible was about to happen. A completely broken roster was on the verge of threatening a fully healthy and heavily favored Dream Squad. And then, the officiating began to slowly, methodically bleed all of the energy and life out of the game.
Come on, guys. Where's my new team? The medical staff. Oh, yeah.
What the referees did, and I know why Stephanie White got a technical foul. Any coach that had to watch their team work so hard all season long, played through every single injury, and the reason why they had so many injuries is because of these referees.
That brilliant early rhythm the Fever had established was systematically disrupted by a series of baffling whistles that seemed to come out of nowhere. Hard-earned defensive stops that should have been converted into fast break opportunities instead became easy, momentum-killing free throws for Atlanta. Clean textbook contests at the rim were inexplicably marked as fouls. Mitchell and her teammates would fight through brutal screens to keep the Dream from getting clean looks, only for the entire play to be stopped and reversed by a call that simply did not add up. And this wasn't just a single isolated mistake. It became a repeating, frustrating pattern that systematically drained away all of the urgency and fire that Indiana had so brilliantly built at the start.
Ryan Howard just falls down, but it's a foul. Like, this is ridiculous. Look at this. Kelsey Mitchell. They don't even let the Fever play defense because she's associated with Caitlin Clark. Look at this one. Another foul where nobody touched him. So they lost the timeout and they lost their challenges for the game because the referees can't do their job.
Lexi Hull became one of the most prominent victims of these inexplicable phantom calls. She was tagged with a crucial foul on Ryan Howard, despite being in what appeared to be perfect defensive position, nowhere near making any illegal contact. A furious coach, Stephanie White, immediately challenged the call, and the subsequent replay confirmed what everyone watching at home already knew: there was no foul. And just like that, she was forced to burn one of her precious challenges in the very first quarter, a strategic nightmare that no coach ever wants to face that early in a game. White later admitted that it was very frustrating to win 2 challenges that fast, because while it proved the referees were clearly missing things, she didn't have unlimited chances to correct their mistakes. In a shocking display of officiating incompetence, she had to spend both of her challenges by the second quarter just to keep her players from being completely buried under a mountain of bad calls.
The referees took it over. Look at this. Everybody saw this. Lexi Hall didn't touch her, but they had to waste their first challenge on this play. Here we go. Look at this. She gets elbowed in the face, and they call a foul on Brianna Turner. And then Lexi Hall turns around to go back on defense, but she gets charged for a foul, and they wanted to upgrade it, reviewed it.
Meanwhile, on the other end of the floor, Atlanta's aggressive physicality was allowed to run completely unchecked. Frustrated fans watched as Brianna Jones appeared to throw an elbow into Brianna Turner, or as Brittany Griner shoved her way into Alia Boston on post-ups, and absolutely nothing was called. The glaring inconsistency turned every single possession into a gamble for the Fever. If Indiana put a body on someone, it was a foul. If Atlanta did the exact same thing, play was simply allowed to continue. That kind of infuriating, lopsided officiating doesn't just show up on the final scoreboard. It methodically chips away at a team's confidence, their focus, and their entire offensive rhythm.
Look at this. Boston gets elbowed in the face by Brittany Griner. Do you think they called it? No. And look at this. Lexi Hall did not touch her. Didn't even touch her. And she gets free throws. Here we go. Kelsey Mitchell touched her hip lightly.
By the time the fourth quarter arrived, the simmering frustration had finally boiled over. Coach White barked at the officials after a particularly egregious sequence where Ryan Howard appeared to pull on Shea Petty without a whistle. In response, the referees immediately teed her up, hitting her with a technical foul for simply vocalizing the exact same raw frustration every single Indiana fan was already yelling at their television screens.
Lexi Hall gets thrown out of bounds. No foul, right? Remember that play, okay? Boston, foul. But look at this. So she goes for the ball, and then they call a foul on Lexi Hall. Look at, she says, wow.
Odyssey Sims received a technical foul not long after for an act of diving for a loose ball that, on any other night, would have been praised as pure hustle, but was instead inexplicably punished. The entire building was now buzzing with a palpable sense of chaos, and the Fever bench looked visibly shaken by the turn of events. Caitlin Clark, sidelined but still very much present, even had to step in to calm her own head coach when Stephanie White looked ready to take her protest even further. It was a completely surreal image. The sophomore star, injured and unable to play, physically holding back the coach, who had simply had enough of all the nonsense. Atlanta, meanwhile, absolutely thrived in the eye of that storm. They masterfully turned the chaos into a game-breaking third-quarter run, stretching their lead and creating a hill the depleted Fever simply could not climb from. The headlines in the aftermath were not about how Indiana's stars played. They were dominated by conversations about the officiating. The fans were left to angrily ask whether the Fever had been beaten by the Dream, or if they had been beaten by the referees. But despite all of that external chaos, the small, battered group on the court never ever stopped fighting, and that part of this story matters even more.
Well, Lexi, talk about the physicality of this game and being able to, knowing it's the playoff playing in such a physical game like today.
Yeah, I mean, I think We knew coming in, it's playoffs, it's going to be physical, and we're going to have to learn how to play with that, especially this team is inherently a physical team. So for us, knowing that's the case and being able to respond, I think there's things that we're able to watch and film on how to handle that better, not letting the refs determine, how that physically is impacting us, but just continuing to play through that. It's definitely something we're going to have to work on and watch film and get better at, but that's part of playoffs, and that's part of the thing that we're going to have to get better at moving forward in the series.
When everything is fundamentally stacked against you, how do you even begin to measure success? Is it by the cold, unforgiving final score, or is it measured by the raw, defiant pride and how hard you fought against impossible odds? That is the precise dilemma the Indiana Fever were forced to confront in Game 1. On paper, they were hopelessly outmatched, but on the court, they simply refused to quit, and leading that ferocious, defiant charge as she always seems to do, was Kelsey Mitchell. She unleashed a playoff career-high 27 points, shooting with stunning efficiency at nearly 50% from the floor and hitting almost every single free throw she earned. Every single time Indiana's offense completely dried up, it was Mitchell who seemed to single-handedly force it back to life. But she wasn't just getting buckets, she was doing it all, adding 4 crucial assists and even a block, doing absolutely everything humanly possible to keep the undermanned Fever desperately clinging to the game.
They didn't stop either. You'd think after 20 of them. Look at this. So that's a foul, right? But watch when the Fever do it 2 times in a row. Same exact thing. But it's not a foul when the Fever drive. Look at this. It's not a foul when the Fever get hit in the air, but the Dream get free throws. Same exact plays. Look at this one. What are you supposed to do? Just roll out the red carpet and give them a layup? She is not fouling her. They give her a 3-point play for putting your hands up.
And yet, for all of Kelsey Mitchell's heroic efforts, it was impossible to ignore the massive game-altering void left by what was missing. The ghost of Caitlin Clark's gravity, her unique ability to force opponents to guard her a full 25 feet from the basket, was gone. Without that constant deep threat, Atlanta didn't even have to pretend to respect Indiana beyond the arc. They were free to build a fortress in the paint, completely cutting off driving lanes and practically daring the Fever's secondary players to beat them from distance. This lack of critical spacing created a brutal claustrophobic environment inside for Aaliyah Boston. Forced to navigate constant foul trouble, she still managed to battle her way to an incredible 12 rebounds while juggling multiple defenders and desperately trying to avoid the referee's quick whistles. Every single possession felt like a grueling wrestling match with Atlanta's imposing front court, but Boston never ever stopped working. Offensively, she was understandably quieter, scoring 8 points on very limited looks, but the sheer relentless force of her rebounding effort single-handedly kept Indiana competitive for far longer than they had any right to be.
Atlanta's had a few of those last few possessions. Mitchell, catch, fire, and hit from 3. What a start. Rebound hits the floor. Hull keeps it alive for Indiana. Mitchell using the screen, dancing around Griner, and able to squeeze it in off window. And another chance here for Indiana.
So much length, and it's obvious on the defensive end for Atlanta.
Boston just kind of pushed it up and in. Guarded by Howard. And slide it into Boston, center of the lane, turning and finishing. Aaliyah Boston, beautiful move.
Lexi Hull gave every ounce she had as
Lexi Hull, too, emptied her entire tank on the floor. While her 9 points might not leap off the final stat sheet, every single one of them was absolutely critical. She drilled one of Indiana's only 3-pointers on a night when the rim felt completely unforgiving for everyone else on the roster. Beyond that, she relentlessly chased Atlanta's players around screens, battled for every loose ball, and perfectly embodied the high-energy role that so often goes unnoticed until it is suddenly desperately missing. Even when her shots weren't consistently falling, Hull absolutely refused to fade, providing a powerful reminder that her true contribution is often made in the crucial ways that don't always translate into box score glory.
Carl Semesco emphasized first just how well she's been playing down the stretch. The efficiency has gotten much better since the second week of August, averaging nearly 20 points a game since then as Hull. 40-33, Atlanta in front. These teams split their 4 regular season meetings as Hull knocks down the 3. Hull gets a step and finishes off the window.
Meanwhile, Atlanta relentlessly unleashed fresh waves of bodies at Indiana every single quarter. Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard both poured in 20 points. Naz Hillman provided a huge lift off the bench with 16, while Brittany Griner's sheer presence in the post acted as a gravitational force, drawing extra defenders and carving out wide open spaces for her teammates. The contrast in depth was stark and brutal. One side possessed an entire arsenal of weapons to rotate in and out. The other was running on fumes, simply praying their exhausted stars could keep standing as the game wore on. The final, damning numbers told the story. Indiana shot under a brutal 35% from the field overall, and as the Dream capitalized by relentlessly rebounding the first miss, the gap on the scoreboard began to widen into an insurmountable chasm.
Mitchell gives it up beautifully. Boston lays it in.
The number of screens that Aaliyah Boston set on that possession, her stagger, pinned down here. She's going to come up and set another on-ball screen, turn, re-screen action, and then finally rolls to the basket. It ends.
And yet, for all the lopsided statistics, the most impressive and lasting takeaway from this game isn't found in the shooting percentages. It is the simple, powerful fact that the Indiana Fever never ever folded. They battled with a relentless fury until the final buzzer, operating under the fierce belief that their chance to flip this entire script had not vanished. It had simply moved to Indianapolis. And now Game 2 becomes their first home playoff game since 2016, and that fact alone provides this battered, resilient group with a profound reason to believe that this fight is nowhere close to being over. The question is no longer about whether Indiana has enough stars on the floor. It's about whether their home crowd can provide the raw, explosive energy needed to fuel a truly season-defining, series-altering win.
I mean, we're competing against everyone. We're in every single game, and I think at the end of the day, we've seen in moments when we're not doing well or games that we've lost, it's really things that we can control. So making sure that we're locked in on all of those things and tidying up those little things, because if we can put together 40 minutes, we feel like we can beat anybody in the league. So we're excited about the opportunity. We're excited that the playoffs is finally here. And now, it's not about what our record was. It wasn't about teams we beat or who we didn't beat during the regular season. It's about Atlanta. It's about this game on Sunday. So that's all we're focused on, and we're really excited about the opportunity.
Picture this. The Indiana Fever have not hosted a single playoff game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse since 2016. And now, after all that time, they are finally stepping back onto that court with their entire season hanging precariously by a single frayed thread. Nearly a full decade of waiting, a decade of rebuilding, coupled with an entire season of being battered by an unprecedented wave of injuries, has all led to this singular defining moment. For the fans, this is far more than just another game. It is a chance to send a deafening reminder to the entire league that playoff basketball in Indiana still means something profound, and the palpable, ravenous hunger inside that building is going to be absolutely impossible to ignore.
I think we're just really excited about it. I think last year our fans were robbed of getting to be part of the playoff experience. Watching the Pacers in playoff, the fans really do show out, and Gainbridge is loud and crazy and electric. And so to be able to host a game there and be able to bring what they've, how they've supported us so long, be able to give this to them and have a really fun one, I think we're really excited about it. And I love this new format.
The setup for this game could not possibly be more dramatic. This isn't just another regular season matchup. It is the Indiana Fever's absolute last shot at extending their improbable run. And the most painful part of it all, they are still down the exact same 6 players that left them so devastatingly short-handed in Atlanta. Caitlin Clark remains sidelined. Sophie Cunningham, Sydney Colson, Ari McDonald, and Chloe Bibby are all still unavailable. And Damaris Dantas remains out after entering concussion protocol, with her status for a potential Game 3 completely up in the air. That leaves Indiana staring down the exact same crippling depth problem, but this time with absolutely no margin for error. Atlanta, of course, knows precisely what worked for them in Game 1. They completely swarmed the paint until Indiana's spacing vanished into thin air, forcing the Fever into a series of hurried, contested jump shots, all while leaning on a level of depth that simply isn't comparable right now. A brutal 2 for 15 from beyond the arc is not going to cut it, and every single person in that building knows it. Head coach Stephanie White has made the game plan crystal clear. If this offense is going to survive, the ball has to move. That means quick decisions, sharp passing, and absolutely no wasted possession. actions. Better execution is not just a goal, it is completely non-negotiable, because the Dream's overwhelming size and length will not magically shrink under Indiana's own roof.
I know that you guys are focused on the game tomorrow, but just with a change in playoff format and knowing that you guys are going to have an opportunity to play at home, does it feel differently this year at all? Even though, again, like, you have to get through tomorrow first.
It doesn't feel differently for me. I mean, because I've been in all the formats, between being a player and a coach. I don't know if it feels differently for them. I'm happy for our fans, that they get an opportunity to see the team in the playoffs. I remember a year ago in Connecticut, it was like, thank God we didn't have to go back to Indiana. So I'm thankful for our fans that they're going to have this opportunity.
The burden on Kelsey Mitchell's shoulders is undeniably heavy, but the offense cannot be just her and her alone. While her 27 points in Game 1 definitively proved she is capable of carrying the load without at least one other scorer breaking free, Atlanta will simply load up on her again and completely suffocate her driving lanes. Aaliyah Boston will battle ferociously inside, and Lexi Hull will fight for every single loose ball, but someone else, whether it is Turner, Howard, or Hartley, absolutely needs to rise up and become a reliable secondary option, and that is precisely where the home crowd comes in. 17,000 screaming fans can't personally guard Ryan Howard or box out Brittany Griner, but their collective explosive energy can make every single Indiana run feel bigger, every defensive stop sting a little deeper, and every possession for the Dream just a little more uncomfortable. This game is not just about survival, it's about proving this franchise can take a heavy punch, stand tall on its home court, and begin to build the momentum toward the future that everyone in Indiana is so desperately waiting for. Win or lose, what happens inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse on this night will define how this entire playoff run is ultimately remembered.
Kelsey, given the playoff format change, you guys being able to actually host a postseason game for the first time in your career in Indiana, how much do you expect that to help you guys, to give you momentum, and how just personally excited are you for that?
Personally excited. I'll let you know when I get there. But I think it gives ourselves a chance to stay in a hunt of things we really trying to figure out, a way to come back here whenever we play. We would like to play again. So you're gonna have to take the necessary steps to be at your best. But I would like to think that being back at home can kind of give us a sense of comfort. So hopefully we can use it for what it's worth and not take it for granted.
This series has now transcended mere wins and losses. It feels like a desperate battle for survival. The Indiana Fever have been physically battered by injuries all season. They have been emotionally robbed of momentum by game-changing whistles, and yet, somehow they are still preparing to fight again. Because Game 2 in Indianapolis is not just another game, it is a crucible. It is the first playoff matchup at Gainbridge since 2016, and absolutely everything now rides on what happens on that floor. The Fever fans now have a role to play. They need to bring every ounce of energy possible, because this is the singular moment that will decide how this entire tumultuous year closes. A single game can still completely flip this entire narrative. So the ultimate question remains, will the home crowd be the decisive spark that keeps their season alive? We need to hear from you. Do you think the Fever were robbed by the refs? Let us know down in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out on these stories. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.